Thank you for checking out our podcast today. We hope that the teaching you're about to hear will inspire you and motivate you on your incredible journey in becoming a better you. So please turn your attention to today's message.
So as I said last week, I started a series called Looking for the Red Flags, And this was a chat on the topic of discernment. It's a topic on discernment. Now, the topic of discernment isn't a very popular topic to teach on, as discernment often deals with self-discipline and self-awareness and self-care. However, I really feel that there is so much value to have an understanding of what discernment is and when and how to use discernment. So last week I gave a summarized definition of the word discernment based on, I used the very same scripture, and I used it out of 5 different versions of the Bible. And I gave a definition based on those scriptures that I want to repeat today. Discernment, as defined by these scriptures, involves the testing and recognizing of God's will, responding to it being God's will, approving and proving God's will, and ultimately growing in the knowledge and understanding of God's will in all we do. So all of that from all of those scriptures that we read last week. If you didn't get the message last week, I want to encourage you to go to scarletnote.org, and you can go to our archives and you'll be able to listen to the introduction. Discernment, like red flags in adverse situations and circumstances, will often prompt us to potential dangers and pitfalls. Discernment, as taught in the Bible, emphasizes the importance in making the right decisions, including God in our decision making, all while growing in our walk and in our faith as believers. Red flags will help us assess whether or not something is as it seems. Discernment isn't just about making the right decision, but about making right decisions according to the will of God. Discernment is going to help us ensure that we are making God decisions rather than good decisions. Did you get that? All right. Too often we're okay and content. We're making good decisions when we ought to be making God decisions. And this is what discernment helps us with. And because I'm constantly tinkering and I love working with my hands, just love working with my hands. I love building stuff. I'm often in a hardware store. And I often see, and maybe some of you have paid attention to this, whenever you go to a store, that you'll find that there are things that are stored on the shelves, organized by the quality of their performance. And they'll range from decent, good, and then, or best. Best. And many times, depending on the circumstances that I have for whatever job I'm doing, I'll consider buying some stuff that's just decent. Why? Because the best is expensive. So I'll just get some of the decent stuff. Why? Because I know I'm not going to use it again. Right? So if I'm staining something and I'm going to throw away that brush, I don't buy the best brush. I just buy one of the foam cheap ones that I could just throw. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Anybody? Okay. Everybody? All right. You don't do that with hair dye. No. I can attest to that. You don't do that. Get the best. get the best. Yes. So in life decisions, we cannot afford to apply this logic of decent, good, and best when it comes to life circumstances, when it comes to life decisions. Hopefully, when it comes to life decisions, all of our decisions are the best for the particular situation that we're up against. I don't know how many young, educated, single women here are just looking to settle for a decent husband. Or do you want the best? I don't know how many hardworking business people have worked their tails off to be where they are, and they're looking to partner up with a partner, a business partner, and they're okay with settling for just a decent business partner. I don't know how many investors are looking to invest in decent investments. Or how many parents are willing to give their children a decent education versus the best education. I don't know how many people are about to have surgery. I don't know how many people would settle for just a decent surgeon. Or do you want the best surgeon? Or if any of you are going to a court of law, if you want a decent attorney, or do you want the best attorney? Okay, the best. All right. Or how many are okay with just having a decent pastor? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Stop it. Stop it. Oh, that was my son. Okay. But discernment in its simplest form is the ability to judge, but not just judge by your own standard, but the ability to judge well according to God's standard. Now, in the constant of our Christian faith, discernment is the ability to distinguish truth from error, right from wrong, and ultimately God's will from our own will. So last week I spoke to you all about red flags in others and in things. Today, briefly, I just would like to talk to you about the red flags in us. 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 That's because the pastor was back there disturbing and disrupting Emily. Emily, don't let him do that to you. By the way, that says looking for the red flags in us, not looking for the red flags in America, in the U.S. We had one of the guys say, hey, pastor, I thought you were talking about looking for the red flags in the United States. No, that's not what that is. So it's in us. So look at the person next to you, said, look for the red flags in us. Self-discernment is a vital aspect of our personal growth. It's part of our spiritual maturity and our growth as followers of Jesus, as followers and Christians. So Matthew 7, I'm going to read out of verses 1 through 5. These are the words of Jesus. These are the words of Jesus, all right? These are his words. And Jesus is speaking this to his disciples, to some followers, religious leaders, advocates and teachers of the law of that time. And these are the words of Jesus. We're going to read out of Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 through 5. Are you ready? Yes. All right. So in this church, we can read together. You can read with me. All right. So Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Now, these are the words of Jesus. Jesus is speaking this to his followers. Do we have followers of Jesus this morning? Okay. So Jesus says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Continue. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. Somebody say, ouch. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? Stop. Let me repeat that again. Isn't Jesus tender and kind? So why do you worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? Continue. How can you think of saying to your friend, let let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye. Then, I love it. Isn't he so loving, right? Hypocrite. Hypocrite. Then he goes, first get rid of the log in your own eye. Then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Take that in for just a moment. Is Jesus telling us that there isn't a place or room for us to share our hearts for what we may see in someone and feel or experience in others? That's not what Jesus is necessarily saying, no. But what he is saying to us is that before you're making an attempt to share your heart about what you may feel or see or experience in someone else, you first make sure that you yourself have been dealt with, that you are dealing with you first. Tell the person next to you, deal with you first. Come on, deal with you first. Some husbands need to say that to the wife. Deal with you first. No, I'm just joking. Don't. You're going to be in trouble.
No, we're going to be in trouble.
But Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5, Jesus is providing his followers with some simple cues. Profound teaching in these just but 6-7 verses to give us examples of how to continue to grow, especially in this area. Through these verses, Jesus is challenging us to look for these red flags in us as we examine our own hearts before we're attempting to pass judgment on others. And I want us to explore the implications of our lives as we're drawing further insight from these scriptures to enhance our understanding and the application of what discernment in our day-to-day lives is all about. What's this about discernment? These words of Jesus are highlighting the importance of having self-awareness, constantly being self-aware, humility, and how we treat others daily. I'm the first to admit, and it really feels easier to point out the flaws in someone else than it is to reckon with the mess that we have in our own lives. I said I'm the first to admit. Anybody else want to go second or third? All right. Y'all just left me out there to hang, yeah. You know, Jesus loved his disciples and his followers so much, and he uses that friendly word in that statement when he says hypocrites. You know that a hypocrite is a pretender. A hypocrite is a pretender, and we often tend from time to time to pretend, don't we? And we're all guilty of pretending. And I don't know what your shortcomings are. I don't know what your challenges are. But today we're going to talk about this. How do we deal with this? How do we reckon with self and look for these red flags? Rebecca, number 1. First point, number 1. Rebecca, cultivate humility and self-examination. Now, these points are not for Rebecca. I'm telling all of you, I just called her name, guys. You guys are looking at her like, yes, you need to be humble. So number one, cultivate humility and self-examination. Cultivate humility and self-examination. Cultivate it, foster it. You have to work on this. Guys, we have to work on this. In a time where everybody put themselves out there on social media, and I mean, literally, we wake up with our phone, go to bed with our phone. And we're projecting to the world, this is me. This is me. Jesus is admonishing his followers to do first, remove the log from your very own eye in verse 4 before you're attempting to address the speck. How many know that there's a big difference between a log and a speck? What is Jesus saying? What is Jesus saying with that? Jesus is telling us that, hey, listen, there's some stuff in our very own life that's some big stuff. And he's saying, hey, man, you need to deal with this big stuff before you are paying attention to the little stuff in someone else's life. And there are times that you may look at your neighbor and you may think that's a big deal. And Jesus is saying, no, what you got to deal with is a big deal. But you can't see past your mess. Romans chapter 12, verse 3, the apostle Paul reinforces this principle when he says this to his followers. He says, because of the privilege and the authority God has given me. Look how humble he is. I give each of you this warning. This warning. This warning. How many know that a warning is a red flag? I'm going to give you this warning. I love this line. Don't think you are better. That's encouraging. Wear that on a t-shirt. Don't think you are better than you really are. Next. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the what? The faith that God has given us. And part of the problem is that we're so accustomed to go back. Emily, I'm sorry, go back. Thank you, Emily. Can we hear for Emily? She's doing a fine job back there. Measuring, listen, the standard by which we measure isn't by a pastor, by a church, by mom, by dad, by siblings, by friends. Your standard is between you and your Heavenly Father. And Scripture teaches us that true wisdom begins when we are acknowledging our own limitations, and that the standard that we use to measure, I go to God for that, and no one else. We could take that down. Thank you, Emily. Proverbs 11 verse 2 says that when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. In order to exercise self-discernment effectively, we must cultivate, we must work on it, toil, and we must foster a spirit of humility, recognizing our need of God's grace and his guidance in everything that we do. Listen, in everything that we do. Humble means to have a modest value of self. Having a modest value of self. The Apostle Paul, writing a letter to the church of Galatia, listen to what he says about thinking about yourself. Out of Galatians chapter 6, verses 3-5. He says, if you think you're too important to help someone, you're only fooling yourself. You're not that important. Isn't that encouraging and inspiring? Like, aren't just so, like, isn't it like just so encouraging? Bless you. You're not that important. Stop fooling yourself. Verse 4 says, pay careful attention to, pay careful attention to what? Your own word. You know what he's saying in today's, if we were, Mind your own business. Mind your own, look at the person next to you. No. I said nothing. You jumped in there. You said it.
No, you said it.
I said look at the person next to you. Y'all just jumped in. Assume. So pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. For what? And you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. Verse 5, for we what? For we are each responsible we are all responsible for our own conduct. And you may not be responsible for what happens to you. I get it. But you're still responsible for how you decide to respond. Did you hear that? When Becky and I go to BJ's, I warn her in the parking lot, baby, we're about to go inside. I need you to behave. Watch your conduct. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, watch the log in your eye. Nah, Becky was about to grab a log and put it into somebody else's eye at a BJ's before. So I have to warn my, hey, babe, let's be careful as we go in here. But then when I'm driving,
You got it all the way.
then she tells me, yeah, I have beams in both of my eyes when I drive.
Your pastor needs an airplane.
Don't even ever say that. Your pastor needs an airplane. Yeah, that's funny. Many parents tell their children not to steal, and then they steal. Many parents tell their children not to cheat, they cheat. Many parents tell their children not to be disrespectful, they're disrespectful. Many husbands tell their children, don't you ever speak to your mother that way. But that's the way you speak to her. Many wives will tell your children, don't speak to your father that way. Oh, that's the way you speak to him. So we need a constant cocktail of both humility and self-examination. And this is going to help us ensure that we don't get swollen-headed and egotistical in how we think about ourselves. I like the way Dr. Rick Warren puts this. He says it best and plainly when he's speaking about humility. He says that humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. So one way to really make sure that you stay humble and checked is to surround yourself and give permission to people that you respect and that you hold in high regard so that they remind you and hold you accountable. This is why we have some, during the week, we get together with the guys, bare knuckles.
Yeah.
Delayed reaction? However, it's why Chris, I got you, Chris. I felt it too, bro. Like, where my man at? Okay, all right. But in bare knuckles, we get together, we speak to each other, we encourage one another. We hold each other accountable. 2 or better. Husbands and wives. 2 or better. Once a month. Once a month we get together just to meet with couples. To give each other permission, to hold each other accountable. To check in with each other. Exchange of, just to literally check in with each other. Women's group. Women get together constantly. They took over my house yesterday. Becky was like, baby, you gotta go.
No, you
No, I had to go. That was way too much estrogen for me in one place. I was all about myself. I was like, I got to get out of here. So I left.
Thank you for assisting.
I did. But I had to go to Lowe's after that. I went to Lowe's. I went to Home Depot. I went to the flea market. I need to make sure my testosterone levels were right because there was a lot of estrogen in that house. My goodness. But listen, you encourage one another. So you give permission to one another to hold each other accountable, to be able to check each other, to go, hey, man, you're out of line. And who better to say you're out of line than the people that you love and you respect, right? Yeah. Yeah. So if I were to, and my goodness, I would have to be careful, but if I were to tell Emmy, hey, that's not cool. It's not coming from someone she doesn't know. It's coming from someone who she knows has invested life with her. So she would have to do two things, either accept it, reject it, but it would be on her. But it would be the same thing for Luis. But that's the same thing for George. Where's George in the back? Right? Get it together. Yo, bro, you got to get it together. And he's got, I mean, so accept it or to reject it. And if I saw a young person here acting out of line, I hope you won't hold it against me that I said, man, your parents would be very disappointed if they saw you doing this stuff. Get it together, Sean. Sean, get it together.
He's a teenager.
Sean, bam, a morning prayer, 6:33 in the morning. Sean, good job. That's my Sean. He made sure, too, he get on his mom's phone to make sure I don't give her credit for being, I'm praying. My mom's not. I am. Good job, Sean. Keep it up. Your mom's a heathen. But we encourage each other, all right? The young adults that are here, young adults, do the same thing. Encourage one another, call each other, check up on each other. That's what we do. Number 2, practice compassion and mercy. This is how you check yourself for these red flags in us. Practice compassion and mercy. Practice compassion and mercy. Jesus' command to refrain from judging others harshly was putting a demand on showing compassion and mercy. This is the overarching message of the gospel of Jesus. You know, last week I said that the Bible absent of Jesus is a dangerous book. The Bible absent of Jesus is a dangerous book. You want to read some danger? You want to see what the Bible absent of Jesus does? Go on TikTok. Go on TikTok. It's flooded by many so-called believers. And what do you see? Judgment, wrath, and condemnation. Why? Bible absent of Jesus is dangerous. And Jesus is ensuring compassion and mercy has to align up with whatever you're reading. You cannot separate Jesus from love and from love and forgiveness. If you look at the life of Jesus, you cannot separate Jesus from love and forgiveness, compassion and mercy. Every parable, every story, every encounter with Jesus was always followed compassion and mercy. Who are we to follow? Jesus. But the word says, but the word says. Jesus is not a character in the Bible. He is the content of the Bible. And if you can't get that and wrap your head around that, you are going to be in some serious trouble. And this is what's wrong with many of our systems. Micah chapter 6, verse 8, we read, He has told you, oh man, what is good and what does the Lord require of you both to do? Justice and to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God? It's a question. As followers of Jesus, we're called to reflect God's character by extending compassion and mercy to all of those around us, not just by the people that rub you the right way. That's hard to do. Listen, it's hard to do. The work of Jesus on the cross was to offer us a what? Vertical relationship between God and us, his children, so that then God in turn could love people that are in dark places horizontally through you. So that was the whole purpose of Jesus coming from heaven here on earth. To do what? Do a vertical work in you so that then he can continue to do a horizontal work through you. James chapter 2 verse 13 says that there will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. Let me read that again. There will be no mercy for who? Those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. That's a standard right there. That's simple. Listen, guys, that's real simple. Be merciful with people. By practicing compassion and mercy in our interactions, we exemplify the love of Christ. We demonstrate genuine self-discernment that is rooted in understanding of God's grace and God's compassion. The other day, I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone, but I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be transparent. But the other day, I found myself, this is about 2 weeks ago, I found myself about to text a fiery response. You ever done that? Anybody? Yeah? All right, so I'm going to tell you how bad it was and how fiery this response was. I had to pull over. I'm going to light them up. You ever do that where your thumbs just start? Shine your light. Never. And it was going to respond to like weakness, like just weakness, something that I just felt like, bro, that's weak. I was raised by a tough mom. My sister's here. We were raised by the same mom. Tough woman. I think the only person here that knew my mom was probably my wife, Becky. George in the back, who she whooped us, man. But my mom was a tough woman. My mom was a tough woman. So I grew up with a tough mom, and I never had an excuse that could ever outdo my mom's life. If I ever had an excuse, my mom, man, she would have a story of how much of a punk I was for giving her the. So I grew up. You know how tough my mom was? I'm gonna tell you a story real quick, right? I have some time. But my mom stomped her toe one time, and her toenail got discolored from that. And my mom went into my father's shed. She grabbed a pair of pliers, and then she ripped her toenail right off her foot. Right? How many think that's bad? Just rip that thing off. You think that's bad? You know how she made sure that thing wasn't infected? She poured rubbing alcohol on it. Right in front of us. And she's like, and then she's looking at us like, That toe shrunk up like a raisin. So I grew up around that. I grew up around that. That messed me up as a child because in my emotions, I was just naturally just tough. It was hard for me. So when I got married, it was hard for me, and my emotions, I didn't know how to show mercy and compassion all of the time. But then that got into when I then became a father, it was messing me up because I was not the most compassionate father, because this is the way I was raised. So I just didn't have my son Jose. We went to the park one time. My son Jose fell from like a 3-story swing set at a public place, and he just fell and boom, head first hit this metal pipe. His head was swollen. I told him to walk it off. You gonna be all right? Walk it off. He's like 5. We always wonder what was wrong with him after that. Again, so as I'm sitting here trying to send this text, I have to now sift through all of that junk that I was. Why? Because I wasn't born again to be like Mom. I was born again to be like Jesus. And see, a lot of times why we struggle as believers and as Christians is that we want to be born again, but we still want to be born again to the same. And you're not born again to be the same. You're born again to be a follower of Jesus. So which means that I get it. If Dad was a mess, well, then that was Dad, and that was the mess with Dad. But from the moment you come to Jesus so that you can be a follower of Jesus and follow his ways. All right? And his ways were about compassion and mercy to others. So as I pulled over, and I'm about to send this fiery, right here in my right hand, shine your light. Stupid bracelet. I had to send a heart. Love you. I'm praying for you. It's going to be better. But it's not what I wanted to say. And in discernment, you're checking yourself. What am I about to say? And this happens with couples. It happens with parenting. It happens at work. How many times your mouth gets you in trouble? And then after you said it, you sit in the parking lot and you're angry and frustrated because it came out of your mouth. You can't take it back. Anybody, or is it just me? Okay. It happens to me, and I work at a church. So, as a consequence of that kind of rearing, because of being brought up with my mom, I've found myself that I've had to backtrack and constantly look for those red flags in me. And discernment helps us to pause, to reflect. So there are times where there are times that before I send a text, I write the text in a note format. And then I think about it. Before I send it, I just think about it. And then if it passes that compassion and that mercy test, then I'll send it. Granted, listen, I'm not perfect, because some of you have gotten some texts from me. Pastor, you okay? I'm like, oh, no, I'm all right. Just going through some stuff. Oh, Becky, baby, let me read that. Baby. Because if you thought my life was tough, Becky, man, she's from a whole other part of the world. And, Becky, huh? She from the West Side? I don't know where she's from. Yeah, I like it, because people be like, your wife is so pretty. She's so nice. Oh, she's so nice. That's right. Like, she's so nice. Rebecca, no, the daughter-in-laws, they know. She's He's so nice. He's so lovable. Oh my goodness. But discernment helps us. Discernment helps us to practice compassion and mercy with others, especially those under the same roof. Why? Because it's very easy sometimes to practice and exercise compassion and mercy with others. And it's easier to practice compassion and mercy with those at work or maybe those in the neighborhood. And I've seen the fellas do this. Guys, because remember, Jesus calls that what? A pretender. What's a pretender? Got it. And the fellas that do real good with each other. Yo, what's up? Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. Yeah, but you go home and you can't show that same compassion, that same mercy to wife, to the children, to those under the same roof. So these are the words of Jesus, the one that you call yourself a follower of. So practice compassion and mercy with others, but make sure that you start with those under the same roof. All right? Wives, and don't think this is all about, dogging the fellas. All right? This is about y'all too. All right? So just chill. Honey, stop. Got her all stirred up. Lastly, so we can wrap this up today. Are you getting something out of this? You sure? All right, because part 3, man. Oof. Number 3, this is the last one. Seek wisdom and guidance from God. In your decisions, seek wisdom and guidance from God. Jesus' words to his followers were to first take the log out of your own eye, and then you're going to be able to see clear so that you'll be able to deal and maybe help with the speck from your brother or your sister's eye. And this emphasizes the importance of seeking wisdom and guidance from God and our pursuit to self-discernment. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 6 says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and what? Knowledge and understanding." Christians aren't supposed to be unreasonable people. No, let me say that again. Louis, you got me, Louis? Yeah. We're not supposed to be. I saw him, Laura. He back there. Corey, leave him alone. Oh, that's good. What I say, Louis? What I say, Louis? Hey, tell your boys, they're right next to you. Go ahead. Hey, yo, your dad's sleeping in church. Alex, look, he's falling asleep. You should harass him. Got him. No, but as Christians, you're not supposed to be unreasonable people. You know what happens as Christians that are unreasonable people? This is how you end up with jacked up elections. And you put people into office. People, what? Just unreasonable people. He's the champion of our cause. Really? You be careful. I'm telling you, some of you guys that are bleeding Democratic blood or Republican blood, y'all be careful. Be careful. The blood of the lamb is the blood of the lamb. But it's not red and it's not blue. All right? All right. Okay. Y'all be careful with that stuff. We have knowledge and we have understanding. We are reasonable people. Jesus is a reasonable man and a thinker who wasn't quick to judgment. James chapter 1, verse 5, it's not on the screen, but if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and the Bible says that he will give it to you generously to be wise, and he's not going to rebuke you for it. Before I hit that send button on my phone, I had to pause and I had to ask God, Father, are these words going to add value to the person who's going to receive? Are these words going to tear down? No, listen, I'm being serious. Think about it. The next time you're sending a text or you're leaving a voicemail. You ever leave a voicemail on someone's phone and then you're regretting it because it's there? I used to do that with my little sister, but I had to stop because she keeps an archive of all my voicemails. It's evidence, and then she comes to the church here and looks at me with those beady little eyes. Hey, listen, and we could laugh and we could find humor in all of this, but you know how many people we have hurt because we're looking at the speck in their eye while we got a log in ours? And we've hurt a lot of people. Are you hearing me? Yeah. Are you sure? Yes. I felt God in my spirit respond. How would you feel if I shared words like that in response to you in your weaknesses? And seeking God in the issues of our day-to-day lives doesn't mean that you become shallow or enabled as a child, but that you can intentionally include and consider God in the process of all of the decisions you are making. Because you're acknowledging that you need help, you need guidance, you need wisdom so that you may honor your Heavenly Father in the way we live and the way we treat others. It's hard. You know, I remember where's Hector? Where? Oh, he's back there in the back, standing back there where he's not supposed to be standing. Where my ushers at? All right, you're going to get that on Thursday. Compassion and mercy. But I remember when Hector went into the military. He was how old, Hector, when you went to the military? 17, turning 18. Just out of, not even, he was still in high school. Yeah. So he was in high school. And as he was in high school over the summer, he went to boot camp. And then when he came back, it just happened because of his age. Well, Becky and I and Alexis, we drove to, was it South Carolina or North? One of the Carolinas. But we drove down there to see him graduate. And they had this parade, man, and there was smoke, and Hector comes walking out, boom, 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 and he's walking in there, and I'm sitting there. Becky and I were just so emotional. We're crying. We're like, look at Hector. Just so proud of him. And I remember when we finally saw Hector and in the middle of the class of all of these guys that graduated, I said to him, so, was it hard, man? Was this hard? And Hector responded, he was like, nah, this was nothing. I was raised with you. I said, man, I have a problem. So I say all of this because if we're not careful, there's stuff that we're doing generationally. And we always start with the house first. Always start with the house. Before you do anything outside, we start with the house first. How we treat others. How we speak to others. So as I wrap up, how do we then gain this wisdom and guidance from God? Daily time of prayer. Daily time of meditation where you're just sitting down, quiet, in God's presence. The fellas that were here for bare knuckles, we talked about that. Yeah. Sometimes, man, just don't say one word. Pay attention to your dreams. Meditate. Be quiet. Listen. Shh. There are times that you just read scriptures in the Bible. There are times where you sit with like-minded brothers and sisters just to share your heart. And this helps to strengthen our walk, our discernment as we look for the red flags in us. So number one, we cultivate humility and self-examination. Number two, we practice compassion and mercy. Number three, we seek wisdom and guidance from God. And this is just the beginning of one of the ways that we can find those red flags in us.
Thank you again for checking out our podcast. If you would like to find information about who we are or how to donate so that we can keep doing what we're doing, please check us out at www.scarletnote.org. See you next time.